radio is broadcast on LSL Podcast Channel. Thank you for listening. Please subscribe to the channel.
You are listening to your Healthy Radio Addiction, 855-40-LAURA. The moral indignation by the American knock Trump off his high horse media is predictable. The focus on this shiny object of whether Donald Trump cares or not, whether he really cares. He's just there at the White House. He left his life in New York and ran for president, went everything that was thrown at him on a daily basis, but he doesn't care. He has no empathy. He doesn't care about people. He doesn't care about the soldiers. He doesn't care about the airmen. He doesn't care about the National Guards people. He doesn't care at all. That's why he ran for president, because he doesn't care. The reason this is happening is twofold. Number one, the media wants you to focus on conversations that were private, because this same media does not want to address the fact that even without congressional action, legislative action, on major legislative priorities such as Obamacare, and still not on tax reform, this economy, under the leadership and the guidance and the priority set of this administration, is soaring. The news we will bring you after we bat down some of these insipid critics. They're rolling out anyone they can roll out to criticize this administration. Now, think about this. You have people who are heartbroken and angry and horribly depressed. And I could never put myself in their position. I feel heartbroken for all of our servicemen and women who've suffered under foreign policy, I believe, that has been misguided for more than a decade, way more than a decade. And you bet I'd like to know more about why our special forces and our Green Berets are in Niger, which we now have to say Niger. Why do we always change the pronunciation?
I don't know. It's like it's ever moving.
Pakistan. It used to be Pakistan.
No, it's
Pakistan. Pakistan.
And Niger.
Niger. They have to say
Sounds
it
like
that way,
a
too.
fragrance when you say Niger. It used to be Niger.
Wear it. Wear it in casually or in formal occasions. Niger. No. But this is it's so predictable. They don't want to talk about the fact that corporate earnings are hiked, well, way up. They don't want to focus on the fact that in Syria, Raqqa is 90% in control by coalition forces. So ISIS has lost its main center of operation. That was the capital, in their mind, of their new caliphate. And now, at least so far, and they want to be cautious about this because you know things can turn on a dime. But ISIS, in all of its brutality, the devastation in Syria. Now, this is all these years after we went into Iraq, and we see all these Islamic movements that were rising. They were being fueled by Iran, and now, and I'm not saying Donald Trump deserves all the credit for this, but it's some good news. Welcome good news. We have the Prime Minister of Iraq today in the New York Times or the Wall Street Journal, one of the two. I think it was the New York Times.
Yeah.
And look, he's not happy about the independence movement in Kurdistan, but he said a united Iraq is ready to rebuild. Look at what's happened in Iraq, and it's just because of bombings there. I don't want to say everything's hunky dory in Iraq. It's not. It's certainly not for the Christians there. But there's some decent signs on the horizon.
Laura,
that
the
things
stock
could be
market
around.
is breaking records in 1 year. It's broken records like 4 or 5 times.
What's that New York Times pension fund looking like right now? What's Jake Tapper's IRA looking like right now? You think about this. But I went back and I looked at the day that this story broke, and I remember, I think I said this yesterday, but I remember waking up in the middle of the night and seeing this report. And anytime you see the words ambush and U.S., it is. Mm-hmm. You think about a lot of things. You think about Marcus Luttrell in Afghanistan. What happened to that SEAL team? You think about what happened in Somalia in 1993 with Bill Clinton. You think about what happened, of course, in Benghazi, which was hideous. where we had the president go to sleep. He went to sleep that night. Hillary Clinton, we still don't have the tick-tock on what she was doing. No one was in the Situation Room. They didn't convene their counterterrorism task force that night of Benghazi. People should have lost their jobs. I still believe, in everything that I've examined on Benghazi, that they could have done more to save those Americans on the ground, and we didn't. Okay. I mean, there's an intense lack of curiosity on the part of the American media and any foreign policy problems that Barack Obama had. A substantive problem, substantive mistakes. But Donald Trump's tone on a temperament on the phone with Gold Star families. And there's another perspective. Now, so they'll trot out various people who, again, heartbroken people who will say what they say. I wasn't there on the call. I don't know, but I do know Trump. You know what? He cares so much about what's happening to the troops. He doesn't want to deploy them unnecessarily in these far-flung wars that John McCain, Lindsey Graham, and most of the crowd in Washington, D.C. don't think much about before we send thousands more troops in Afghanistan. By the way, we had dozens of Afghani officers killed 36 hours ago on the ground. Another Taliban truck attack. Dozens of officers dead. This is while we've added troops to our already, 12,000 troop contingent in Afghanistan. Added more troops. How many troops do we have there now, Raymond? My mind is a muddle after getting 3 hours of sleep. But we added 12,000. Or we're adding 12,000.
We're adding 12,000 more.
So we more than 12,000, obviously. But we're seeing more violence in Afghanistan. I don't know why we're still in Afghanistan. I don't think we should be in Afghanistan. That's my view, which differs from the Trump administration's view. I think we have lost our wealth and lost the lives of good Americans in Afghanistan. And I guess we've stopped, Afghanistan from being used for certain attacks outside the country, and that's great. But at what cost? And could we do it for, without having boots on the ground there? So these weren't Americans killed, but these are the top Afghani officers. This is when America's still there. So there's a lot substantively to discuss about our foreign policy that I would say I would even criticize the Trump administration for, or at least take issue with some of the decision making. But the tone and temperament of the president, that's really what CNN and Tapper and all these guys are going to focus on. When this attack happened, October 5th, there was a short article in NBC News. 3 U.S. soldiers killed in Niger in suspected ambush, and they talked about how this thing went down and how the Daesh throw a spotlight on one of the many military operations being conducted in Africa as part of a wide-ranging war on a variety of extremist groups in a swath of countries stretching across the continent. A joint Nigerian-American patrol was ambushed near the village of Tongo, approximately 17 miles from the border with Mali. U.S. forces in Niger are there to provide training and security assistance to the Nigerian armed forces, including support for intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance efforts, and in their efforts to target violent extremist organizations in the region, according to the Naval Lieutenant Commander Anthony Falvo in a statement released to NBC News. One aspect of this training, advising, and assisting to the Nigerians in order to increase their ability to bring stability and security to their people. And a senior military official described it as a partner training mission. What is China doing partner training missions over there? No, as far as I can tell, China's just buying up all the assets in Africa. They don't seem to be losing soldiers in Africa, but they are putting a lot of money in Africa. Mm-hmm. So they're doing it a different way. They have a different priority.
Remember, this whole controversy we're talking about, the president was making the point that he takes time to call these troops. When they lose their lives, he calls the families. He may have stepped into this himself.
He opened the door to this narrative, which is built into this very unfair narrative. But again, the president himself needs to stay on message. These side squabbles do nothing except suck up oxygen from the room. And I know he wants to win every argument, but guess what? Some arguments aren't important to win. I know he cares about all these troops. And I mean, he can say something else about this and say, it is a heartbreaking ordeal for these families to go through what they go through on a daily basis. And my job as commander-in-chief is not only to provide comfort in a time of great heartbreak, and I do my best at that, but my primary job is to ensure that when we deploy our forces, we do so in a smart, directed fashion with a clear goal in mind. American forces are going to lose their lives in very dangerous missions. But my goal is that to ensure that on every mission, we minimize the risk to our soldiers while we have a clear goal in mind that will add to our safety and security back home. Mm-hmm. If I were he, that's how I would handle this. I wouldn't get into Obama did this, Clinton did this. Who cares what they did? You're president now.
And he's winning on these other fronts.
He's winning
the economy
on the big stuff.
is just exploding. The unemployment benefits plunging to their lowest level since 1973. I haven't heard that anywhere. I haven't seen that anywhere.
I don't want to talk. No, Jake Tapper's not going to focus on that. Jake Tapper and company, Joe Scarborough, they're going to focus on Trump does not care. Obama cared. Obama cared, and we had no economic growth. We had abysmal growth, flatlining wages. Okay, that's 62% of the country said we went in the wrong direction the last year of his presidency. Mm-hmm. But he cared. He cared in Benghazi. I don't think so. Didn't seem to, at least that day. Didn't seem like he cared. But maybe that's being unfair. But all I can say is it doesn't seem like the substance of what's happening on the ground in foreign policy is all that exciting to a lot of these commentators and analysts who rush to condemn Donald Trump. Let's talk about the substance of what's happening in the country, both domestically and fine, foreign policy-wise. I'm happy to have that conversation.
It's also rather silly to say the president is wrong to bring this up, that he's more empathetic than anyone else. Yet the narrative is Obama and others were more empathetic than the president. So,
by the way, Dustin Wright was killed also in the Nigerian
ambush.
mission, in the Niger ambush. His brother Will spoke out. Let's listen.
It was a lengthy phone call. It was about 20 minutes, and he was satisfied with the call. He got to express a lot of the sentiments a father would express after losing a son, and President Trump handled it, like a president. And he let my father get it out.
Yeah, and the father, I think, said, "What are we doing over there in Africa? What was my son doing?" Well, wouldn't you say that if you lost a son or a daughter in a mission like this? What were they doing in this part of the... You're listening to the Laura Ingraham Show, 855-40-LAURA. Do you agree that the Bring Down Trump media are focused on these side issues because the other narrative doesn't work so well for them? 855.
Let's talk about education for a moment, shall we? Did you know that more than 15 states now have begun requiring high school students to pass a basic citizenship test in order to graduate? It's sad that such a test is even necessary. And it shows me that, to an extent, American civics education doesn't even exist anymore. And it needs help. We need to rejuvenate it. That's why, beginning with their free online courses and Imprimis, Hillsdale College is making an impact in K-12 education. Here's how. Hillsdale provides ongoing support and guidance to classical K-12 charter schools nationwide. Thousands of elementary and high school students are already enrolled, and Hillsdale does it all without taking a single penny of taxpayer funding or money from the schools themselves. It's called the Barney Charter School Initiative, and it's revolutionizing K-12 education. You can learn more at lauraforhillsdale.com. Watch the brief, powerful video about this exciting work and witness the difference Hillsdale is making in thousands of lives across the country. That's lauraforhillsdale.com.
President Trump has no empathy for those who've served abroad in our wars, or those who have been killed, or the families of those who've been killed. He has no empathy, no understanding of the human emotions of what people go through, because he never did it himself.
My name is Richard Painter, and frankly, no one in the former administration officials even know who he is. But he shows up on CNN and he criticizes Trump. No empathy. And he gets a guest spot wherever he wants. Never Trump. I'm never Trump. For some reason, none of the people in the Reagan administration will even speak to me. Bush administration, whatever it is I work with. No,
he is a nightmare. Okay? I am sick of him. Richard Peter, who the heck is he?
Ghost of official of administration.
No empathy. No There's nothing. And because he never did it. Because
Never did what?
Never did what? Oh, let me just say, never did. Oh, because we're never served in the military. Because Barack Obama was so, he had such a facility with military terminology. Let's listen.
One such translator was American of Haitian descent, representative of the extraordinary work that our men and women in uniform do all around the world. Navy Corpsman Christian Bouchard.
But he's really in tune with the. What's more offensive, forgetting someone's name or not knowing? It's Corman. Didn't he say it was 59 states in the United States at one point?
Yes, at one point or 52. I can't remember.
He
what it
doesn't
was.
know. I mean, come on. He's a pontificator of liberal banalities, Barack Obama. He speaks in these when he doesn't have his talking points in front of him, it's let me talk about it. I mean, he's a big okay? I don't and by the way, when Patricia Smith spoke about Hillary Clinton's cold, dead eyes, when she greeted her after her son's body came back from Benghazi, did the media give her the type of star treatment they give all the other people who are claiming that Donald Trump had no empathy? Patricia Smith was basically treated as a kook by the old media. They didn't give her due. Instead, they put on opposing parents who said, well, no, it was fine. Hillary was fine. But she spoke at the convention. She was so upset. But Khazir Khan, when they found the Islamic father and mother who would wave the Constitution, and again, Donald Trump doesn't care. No, I would say Donald Trump cares enough that he wants to approach foreign policy in a much more, I would say, judicious fashion. He doesn't want to do the John McCain deployments every time that another country has a problem. I actually had people coming up to me in Vegas and in Phoenix for the Billionaire at the Barricades tour who said, I'm using my Genucel. Laura, a lot of people say you look younger in person than you look on TV. I don't know. I guess that's a compliment. I guess. But they say, well, must be the Genucel. So I love the fact that all of you out there are getting on the Genucel bandwagon. Now, what is Genucel? It's this advanced stem cell treatment. It's like natural plant stem cell treatment, and it has these peptides, all this cool stuff for you're tired, the bags and puffiness under your eyes, and it minimizes those fine lines under your eyes, so you just look fresher. You just do. That's why I travel with it. I should just start giving away tubes of Genucel at my appearances. So many people were making comments. I love it. Anyway, and it has effects that feel like it's tightening your skin almost immediately. You feel the difference. And if you don't, guess what? You get a 60-day, 100% money-back guarantee. And I use Genucel. I've used it now for, I guess, 2.5, 3 years, and I love it. Wouldn't leave home without it. And right now, if you call, you'll also get a 2-month supply of that deep firming serum I also use, and I also love. And you call in the next 20 minutes, you get a free 2-month supply of Esotique RF, which is the most popular wrinkle treatment that they have for free. That basically is 4 free gifts. So you order now. You also get a surprise luxury gift for free. I don't know how you can not order now. This is craziness. 800-480-5206. That's 800-480-5206. Genucel. Your skin will love it. Seems to grow thicker by the day. But the media, the traditional media, they'll focus on whether Donald Trump had the right tone or temperament, or whether he even cares at all about our troops. This story is stunning and has been for anyone who cares about this, minor issue of the former Soviet Union having access to and indeed having purchased 20% of U.S. uranium sources. When this was happening, the process began right when Obama came into office in 2009. We were on the radio saying, on what analysis does this make any sense? And I think most people, right off the street, if you ask them, should the United States ever allow a China or a Russia or a Pakistan to buy nuclear material? Ever. Any part of our nuclear material. And of course, uranium can be used in nuclear power plants, etc., variety of uses. I think most people who know nothing about politics would say no. Of course not. It's crazy. So why did we do it? And why is it that a Russian nuclear firm that was under FBI investigation during the Obama years was allowed to purchase this U.S. uranium supply? And around the same time, this was Bill Clinton was getting speaking invitations for $500K a pop in Russia. Joining us now, a woman who's been investigating this, writing about it, and actually doing the kind of reporting that we need in the United States of America, is Sarah Carter from Circa News, from Circa.com. She joins us now. Sarah, we've been discussing the media and their shiny object approach to reporting. So look at this. Donald Trump doesn't care about our troops. Donald Trump doesn't care about our troops. Meanwhile, we continue to have this developing narrative that you're pursuing about how information was kept from Congress in the Obama years when Hillary was Secretary of State, and now perhaps criminal investigations into the underlying activity. And we also have this Russian dossier story, which we got to simplify for the listeners so they really understand why this is important. But let's first talk about this point that was raised by Senator Grassley yesterday in that testimony that Jeff Sessions gave before Congress.
That's right. I mean, if we're looking at this, Laura, I mean, they were investigating back in 2009 for 15 months. The FBI had an investigation up until the time the Obama administration approved the sale of the Canadian company Uranium One. And why that's important is because Uranium One had 20% interest in U.S. uranium, so it had to go through a special approval process. One of the groups on that approval process, on the CFIUS board of the 13 members, was the FBI. Under Robert Mueller at the time, by the way, they knew that the Russian company, the arm of Russia, was actually involved in bribery and kickback schemes and trying to purchase influence inside the United States. That was one of the biggest things that they were looking into. Yet, we don't know yet. For some reason or another, the FBI never brought that to the CFIUS board. And if they did, we want to know why it was passed. And this is the reason why I started looking into this. I was approached, actually, by the former FBI informant that was able to penetrate the Russian nuclear industry. And for 4 years, he was giving information to the FBI. But the FBI, they kept that information away from Congress. They kept that information away from the public. So nobody was the wiser, except for the people that were involved in the investigation.
Just so everyone understands what Sarah is talking about, the Committee on Foreign Investment in the United States, that's CFIUS, that's the acronym. It's an interagency committee authorized to review transactions, it's under the Treasury Department, to review transactions that could result in control of a U.S. business by a foreign person in order to determine the effect of such transactions on the national security of the United States. And this process of review of foreign persons or entities has been reformed over the past several years, and internal procedures, so forth. But Hillary Clinton did sit on that committee, correct? She sat on that committee as they were reviewing this transaction.
Yeah, Hillary Clinton sat on that committee, which was then chaired by Treasury Secretary Timothy Geithner, and also, and Attorney General Eric Holder. So all of these people should have been, according to my FBI sources, should have been aware that there was this ongoing investigation into Rosatom, which is the main arm of Russia's nuclear agency. And they were very well aware, according to the FBI sources that I've spoken with, of what was going on. But still, they approved it. And let me go back a little bit. During that time, what a lot of people don't realize, there was a huge concern within the U.S. intelligence community that Russia was already breaking deals globally, that they didn't know where Russian uranium was actually going. There was a belief, and there still is a belief among the U.S. intelligence community, that Russia was selling uranium on the side against any kind of deals that they had internationally. And that's something, believe me, that they're still looking into and that they're still investigating. And that's why this is such a national security issue.
Sarah, what about the fact that Russia, along with China, of course, are two of the countries that have propped up North Korea and the North Korean nuclear ambitions? Could this all lead to a conclusion that we meaning the Obama administration, ended up approving a deal that would have made it easier for the North Koreans to develop the nuclear capability that we're deathly afraid of and concerned about today? I mean, we don't know where the uranium was going. Maybe it's all staying in Russia, but who knows? With the shadowy figures that operate in the Russian government, who knows where this stuff is going?
Absolutely, Laura. I mean, I think they're looking at not only North Korea, but let's take a look at Iran. I think there was enormous concern during the time of this investigation that Russia, who's an ally of Iran, we know they've been supplying them with all kinds of military capabilities, and there's been a lot of concern over that maybe some of the uranium actually ended up with the Iranians, and that became a point of contention. I can tell you this, that this investigation started out as a counterintelligence investigation, that it evolved into a criminal investigation. But what was so fascinating is that I think there was such a big push to solidify the Uranium One deal under the Obama administration that, according to the sources that I've spoken with, they kept this investigation quiet. So quiet, in fact, that you would think Rod Rosenstein at the time, who was in charge of this investigation in Maryland, Andrew McCabe, who's now the deputy director of the FBI, Robert Mueller, who was head of the FBI when the investigation started.
Yeah, none of them should be working in government.
They would have made a huge deal about this.
No,
they buried it. Yeah. They buried it. They buried it, and nothing came about until 2014.
Now, collusion, Russia colluding with American interests, American interests in the. We saw the bribes that went to the trucking company executives that were involved here, and others. I mean, I don't know, collusion to get speaking fees, collusion to keep Congress in the dark. They for some reason they were hot on getting this Russian uranium purchase done. Someone was like, hey, okay, let's not make a fuss about this. It's all going to work out. We want to get this thing done. The timing of Bill Clinton's speeches, the fact that the Clinton Foundation itself received an enormous amount of money from Russian interests, and maybe you could speak to that a bit.
Yes, I think that was, let's go back to Peter Schweitzer and Clinton Cash. You know, I talked to Peter Schweitzer earlier. He's the author of, and did a great investigation into exposing what he was saying was the quid pro quo between the Clinton Foundation, access to Hillary Clinton, then as Secretary of State, and money coming from foreign entities. And that is something that I think what he was saying is they couldn't connect the dot all the way because they didn't have an eyewitness. Now there is an eyewitness. There is a former FBI informant who was sitting with the Russians, who was very deeply embedded into the Russian nuclear industry, who wants to testify before Congress about his knowledge of what was going on with the Clintons, with the Obama administration, and with the Russian Uranium One nuclear uranium deal. So right now you have an eyewitness who's willing to come forward, who's willing to tell the American public what he knows from his investigation. And remember, this investigation would have never happened without this FBI informant. He felt it was his duty. He actually approached the Justice Department when he found out what was going on and said, I need to tell you what's happening here, and I want to let you know so you can investigate this. And they basically asked him, would you please work for us? Would you please stay in
swept it under the rug. It was swept under the rug.
Yeah.
I mean, let's just be a common sense description of this. This was deep-sicked, swept under the rug, so you could fast-track this uranium sale to the Russians. And
but maybe not so much anymore. But maybe not so much anymore now that we have the Senate Judiciary Committee calling.
Looking into it.
Yeah, they're looking into it. They're asking the Justice Department to look into it. You played a clip there from Attorney General Jeff Sessions, and they want to speak now. As late as last night, they sent a letter. They sent a letter to interview this former FBI informant. and get his story.
Okay, but we're literally almost out of time. But what about the Russian dossier? Can you give us like a 45-second update on that against Trump? That spurious dossier that was being used apparently by the FBI as well.
Yes, well, I think President Trump brought up some very interesting points. He tweeted out, regarding the dossier. I mean, it's something that we've been looking into as well. We need to know who paid for that dossier, why they paid for it, how the FBI received that dossier, and how the FBI validated that dossier before they opened up an investigation into President Trump and then, President-elect Trump and began looking into the people surrounding his campaign. I think these are really valid questions. We need to ask the FBI, and the FBI knows. And the FBI isn't telling anyone. But you know what? Our Congress can get the FBI to tell them what they know about this dossier. If Christopher Steele, the guy who put the dossier together, isn't willing to talk, then the FBI should definitely let Congress know how they came about this, how they even validated it enough to start an investigation, and who exactly paid for it.
Deep state. This is why they call it deep state, Sarah. And you got to do a lot of deep reporting to get to the bottom of it. I really appreciate what you're doing on this. Stay on it. Come back soon. Sarah Carter from Circa, circa.com. We've linked her pieces up on lauraingraham.com. Read them in their entirety, and you understand why the kill-off Trump media are focusing on the tone and temperament of a phone call versus the substance of what happened and predated this administration and what substantively is happening on our economy and in foreign policy. Follow the shiny object? I don't think so. Not on this show. Don't go away. Oh, we just found out that indeed Billionaire at the Barricades is now officially a New York Times bestseller. Let's keep it going. I thank all of you who've already gone to our website, lauraingraham.com, come to one of our tour stops, or bought a book at Amazon or Barnes & Noble or one of your local bookstores. We're very gratified. I know that the historical frame we're putting around the rise of Trump is helping people understand just what's at stake in our country, our future, on these issues of trade, immigration, political correctness, and keep it up. Keep the momentum up. We want to keep this book on the list as long as possible because we want the conservative populist movement to continue to have its voice beyond just the White House. Ivana Trump is going to join us. I'm the real first lady. That was kind of fun when she said that. That created a firestorm. We're going to talk to her about what it was like to raise these kids. So she's going to join us and a lot more. There's a piece that I posted on lauraingraham.com about the growing link between sugar and cancer, the development of cancer cells. I've talked about this for a long time. Cut that sugar intake, my friends. Not good for you. White sugar, not good for you. It feeds cancer cells? Well, I'm telling you, I think it does. So, and there's more analysis that says it looks like there is a link. So go to our website, read the latest on that. Roger Goodell, who looks like he has been put through a meat grinder. You see, he looks like he hasn't slept in months every time he gets up in front of the cameras. He comes out of this meeting yesterday with NFL owners and players and tries to have it on the one hand, on the other hand. We want our players to stand, but they're not required to stand. That's the upshot of all of
The
this.
league has been cowed by their players. As we said weeks ago, these NFL, the front offices and the owners are petrified of offending their players. And their players have not been fully appraised of what's really going on.
Right.
And apprised. Some of them think they're kneeling for racial injustice. Others feel they're kneeling because of something that happened in their community. Everybody's taking a knee for their own reasons. And it's not an organized or clear-cut protest. Yet, the NFL, in their rule book, insists that players should stand during the anthem. Then today you hear from Shad Khan, by the way, a close friend of the president's, owner of the Jacksonville Jaguars, who says the rules are fine the way they are, but it wouldn't be appropriate to force players to stand. That wouldn't be appropriate. Well, the rules say you have to stand. I don't understand any of this. To stretch
the NFL
standing.
ratings have been sliding since last year. And there were pieces in November of 2016 about how the NFL was considering reducing ads and length of commercial breaks, length of games, back then because the ratings were starting to slide. And they were looking at a variety of ways to shorten the game broadcast, including trimming some advertising to keep the action moving. Well, that's fine. That was fine to consider all of that back then. But now what? They continue to fumble. And the fans, I think the fans have already given up. I mean, I think to me, a lot of the fans have said, you know something, I'm not into you anymore.
And now the sponsors,
I'm just not that into you.
The sponsors pay a lot to be affiliated with the NFL. Now the most unpopular sport in the country. This is not something that their sponsors are looking happily upon either. So you've alienated the fans, you've alienated the sponsors, your ratings are going down, and your arenas are half full.
We were with two former NFL players yesterday. And let's talk about one first. Matthew Light, who was
a former Patriot.
Former New England Patriot. There's a funny photo I tweeted out last night. James, you got to look at that photo. I believe I tweeted it. I might have Facebooked. I think I tweeted it. It was late. We came back late. What a delightful guy he is. I adored him. I told him to get his hair cut. I said the haircut is just. He has long hair. He looks like kind of an old cowboy, or who's the old historical figure from the West? He looks like
Custard.
Yeah,
he's got that like
General Custer.
Hair parted in the middle, very long, almost to the shoulders, and then the long beard.
Yeah, I'm looking at the video right now. I mean, the photo right now.
It's hilarious. I was pulling his beard.
Yeah.
It's on Twitter. You have to go look at it.
Yep.
So he was with us. We did a great event for this company called Energy in Massachusetts, from Peabody, Massachusetts. Actually, this firm, they put on an amazing conference. It was called Unlocking the Possibility or Unlocking the Potential. So they had you had him and Rod Ninkovich. Rod Ninkovich, who was the offensive line. Was he offensive O-line?
I'm not sure.
He was I can't remember what he played for the Patriots, but two great guys, by the way. Great guys.
He was a linebacker.
He was a linebacker. Okay. Mm-hmm. It's funny, I asked him, do you watch he's like, when I left play, I really left it behind. Occasionally I'll check in, but it's interesting to talk to the players who's like, I don't really watch anymore.
He said, I caught a Purdue game last week.
I caught a Purdue game because they both went to Purdue. They were both football players at Purdue. But they go around and do public speaking, and they have their own foundation work that they do. Great guys, both of them.
Matt Light's foundation, and Ninkovich joins him on many of these outings.
They're good.
They
buddies.
Mentor kids from the inner city. They pick like 13 kids. They take them to camp. They take them fishing, but they follow up with them throughout the year. Tell me what your grades are. Tell me what you're doing now. Teaches them accountability, what it means to be a man. And this, I said, we have been harping on this from the beginning.
Right.
If you want to make a difference in your community, go volunteer. Be a mentor with the Boys and Girls Club. Cam Jordan on the Saints did a literary stop this week, and I saluted him for that. He went to a school. He was trying to get these kids to read. When an NFL player walks in their jersey, it's like a demigod walking in. The attention that, particularly kids in the inner city, they so look up to these sports figures. Any kid does. That's where their energy, and I think you want to protest, do it there. Channel your energy there because it's something you uniquely can do that none of us can. It's a hold on the young that you have that most other adults simply don't have access to.
So they were impressive guys.
I'll say.
Really impressive. That's what we need to do more to highlight. Yeah, pushing that narrative. But this issue of not standing for your national anthem, that the NFL, they can't get it right. Let's listen.
The NFL players have demonstrated a real sense of courage to stand up, use their platform to add to others who have already done the same. So now with the kneeling, it is the continuation of sports figures supporting those of us that have been in this movement in these recent years and even longer for some of us.
When Al Sharpton is praising the NFL owners, who, as someone described them to me the other day, they're a bunch of little, for the most part, the owners are geeks who weren't players themselves, and they wear their team ownership as it's like the equivalent of getting a red Ferrari for a lot of the owners. Like, they're cool. They're owners, so they're cool because they're owners. They hang out with these guys, many of whom, of course, are African American. Most of the owners are white. right? And they're cool. They're considered cool. They don't want to be uncool by having players, and both white and black, but most of the players are African American, who are angry at them for one of these side issues. So they're afraid of their own players. Don't you think the owners should be afraid of their revenue falling and the fans who make this sport possible?
Well, there's a piece in the Wall Street Journal, and they're talking about small businesses, okay? Ben DeVoe, he's the director of a franchise development for pro-image sports. They operate about 100 retail franchises that sell athletic merchandise. Mm-hmm. Their revenues are down 20% in the last few weeks.
So all these ancillary businesses,
right,
who make money off the NFL, they're also hurting. But I guess the NFL owners don't care about them either.
Jersey sales in one Arizona store, they sell NFL player jerseys, down 54% since the controversy erupted. The financial toll that this has taken on the NFL and all the auxiliary businesses that make money off of it is profound. And yet these owners won't stand up to the players and say, look, we can do real good in the community without offending our base by kneeling during a national anthem, a moment of unity.
Over the first 6 weeks, NFL ratings are down 7.5% as compared to last season per Nielsen. They're down 18.7% from 2015. And basically, Goodell was punting yesterday and blaming the presidential election for America's fading interest. Let's listen.
I understand where our fans feel about this issue, and we feel the same way about the importance of our flag, about the importance of patriotism, and I believe our players feel that way. They will state to you, and they have stated to everyone publicly, they are not doing this in any way to be disrespectful to the flag, but they also understand how it's being interpreted, and that's why we're trying to deal with those underlying issues.
This is like double speak. You know, Laura.
He should go into politics.
Laura, I love that dress you're wearing. I'm not sure about the length of it, and the color is kind of offensive, but, you know, it's a nice dress. I guess it's okay.
He should run for office. What? Goodell should run for office because it's always the verbal sleight of hand with him. He's also developed an odd verbal tick. When we come back, we'll tell you what that was. You can listen for yourself for what it was. I'm just not following. I've got to say I'm not following the games. I'm not following. I don't even know who's up, who's down in the NFL.
Okay, here's the question to callers. Is this going to further drive you away from the NFL, or does this bring you back to your regular viewing habits of the game? Does this give you a sense of confidence that the NFL will not change its policy, but it won't enforce it either?
855-40-LAURA. As the Billionaire at the Barricades tour moves to West Palm Beach on Monday. Details on lauraingraham.com, although I believe it's sold out. The book is officially a New York Times bestseller, so we learned that yesterday. We're very happy and grateful to all of you who've both recommended this important book, which is a historical frame, which we need now. We need history books. So people say, oh, Trump's just a one-off. Oh, really? Ross Perot, Pat Buchanan, Richard Nixon's silent majority, Ronald Reagan slapping tariffs on Japanese motorcycles, the fight with the Bushes, immigration amnesty fight 2007, Harriet Miers going down in flames, the rise of the Tea Party, the GOP establishment continuing to fight Trump during the nomination and pre-convention process. Really? This just came out of nowhere. 855-40-LAURA. Billionaire at the Barricades. Buy your book. I want you to buy at least a few books for friends, family members. And if you really want to make a statement at Thanksgiving, drop that book down on the table before the turkey comes. Don't go away.
I'm sure every one of my listeners understands the importance of oral care to your overall health. There's no denying the connection. And I'm also sure that many of you have a sensitive mouth or gums. And sometimes you have painful canker sores, or sadly, maybe even painful sores from something like chemotherapy, from cancer treatment. And what you may not know is that your mouthwash, especially if it's one of those brands that really burns, it may be making things worse. So you should try non-irritating, alcohol-free Closis Oral Rinse. That's Closys. Closis is like first aid for your mouth. It's as gentle as water, but it helps relieve common but uncomfortable, even painful issues in your mouth. And unlike other mouthwashes, Closis is also pH balanced, which eliminates the burn and the irritation. Try Closis Oral Rinse for sensitive mouth gums and canker sores for pain-free oral care. That's Closis, Closys. Learn more about the gentle, effective oral rinse at Closis.com or get Closis today at Walgreens, CVS Health, and Walmart. If you've listened to my show for any period of time, you know how much I love Food for the Poor. They do what they say. Their financial integrity is unequaled, and I've seen their work personally. I'm so excited to work with them again this year. In Haiti, 1 out of 14 children will never see the age of 5 without our help. Together, we're going to save the lives of 4,200 children. $50 provides food for a year and clean water for life for a suffering child. Call 844-868-4673 or go to lauraingraham.com. That's 844-868-4673 or go to lauraingraham.com.
I'm courtesy of Grabian. Roger Goodell. How many times could he invoke the word communities? I care. Read, I care. Translate, I care about the inner city because I use the word communities.
He may be the only one who cares. Let's go to the callers. Rhina in Oklahoma, you wanted to say what?
No
Rhina.
NFL. There's no compromise.
No compromise, not into the NFL. Short but sweet. I think they've lost a lot of the fans. They're not going to come back. They're not going to come back unless there's some real sea change in the way they're dealing with this.
They better all stand.
Big mea culpa. They better be doing a lot for military families. They've got huge donations to military philanthropic organizations.
They wear pink accents on their helmets and socks.
Pink. And I'm a breast cancer
I want
survivor.
red, white, and blue on the helmets and the socks for veterans.
Right.
And let veterans in for free that day and their families. Let's go to Kyle, Arizona.
Kyle.
Yeah, good morning. Lifelong Packer fan, and I just have totally lost interest this year. It's sad. They want equality, but, they're driving to the stadium in their brand new cars and their mansions, and it's just frustrating. They don't understand the difference between the national anthem and the patriotism and helping out the police officers. So I like the ideas where they go off, go in their day off and help out.
Mm-hmm. I think that's a great point.
Yep.
The Billionaire at the Barricades big book party is tonight. It's going to be a big crowd. Apparently they had to shut off the crowd. There's too many people. So they had this fire marshal issue. They had to...
Are you allowed to announce what
people?
that is? I don't know if...
It's at an embassy.
An embassy?
The Breitbart Embassy.
Oh.
It's a special embassy. It doesn't have diplomatic immunity, though. It's in Washington, D.C., but it'll be a lot of fun. A lot of old friends and folks from Capitol Hill, some of the congressmen. I don't think Mitch McConnell would be there.
Elaine, get your stole. Let's go. We're going to be late for Laura's book party.
I'm not sure who in Capitol Hill will be there, but it'll be interesting. Whoever shows up, you know what side they're on the populist side or the globalist side. Carl Rode, by the way, has written a piece trashing Breitbart and the Steve Bannon effort to unseat some of these, let's say flabby incumbents.
It's called Steve Bannon's Motley Crew of Challengers. Not a sweet piece. Let's go to the phones one last time. Sergio, Florida, you wanted to say very quickly.
Sergio.
Yeah, I'll never watch an NFL game again. It's a disrespect to our law enforcement and our servicemen. I'm a retired police officer, and they try to say our police officers are racist and bad. I'll tell you, I adopted 12 kids, and 11 of them are black. I do more for the black community than all of them do. And
awesome.
They want to put us in a bubble. Well, look at my story. My story, I went out and did, what I always did with the communities, helped them out, and I took in as my own son 11 black children, and I love them with all my heart, and it's a disrespect what they're doing out there.
Sergio, first of all, you're cool. You are great. Good for you. That is impressive. I thought I was doing okay with 3. You got 12 under your... Gee, 12? Oh, my goodness. Good for you, Sergio. Oh, yeah, the police are all racist? Oh, okay. Until you need them, then suddenly they're not racist.
Right.
They're racist, or no one can get a fair shake. Well, you drive to the stadium in your Bentley, and then you complain about the inner city. Okay. Well, then just spend more time in the inner city. Help out. Encourage fatherhood. Encourage... people to be with their families, encourage all that. There's a lot players do and former players are doing with their foundations and great work, and I'm not going to throw the book at all the players because a lot of these players are just wish this would just end. They don't want this.
No, and it's caused enormous divisions among the teams, to say nothing of the relationship between the teams and the ownership.
But it just reminds me of the Sex and the City, which could be a foul show, but there are some Sex and the City scenes which stay with me because I used to watch the shows when I had breast cancer. I watched all of them. It was some of it was really gross, but binge watch. But there was a scene with this Miranda talking about this guy. Well, he hasn't called me back yet, but I know he's really busy.
I hope what I'm going to say will save you a lot of time and energy. He's just not that into you. So move on.
The fans are just not that into you anymore. They're not coming. They're not into you anymore. That was a funny scene because she thought, "Oh, we really hit it off. We really hit it off. It was, and it was really great." And Carrie's boyfriend was across the table, and she looked and said, "He's just not. Hate to tell you, he's just not that into you. You asked to come up. You asked to come up and have a drink, or you follow up the next day. If he doesn't follow up the next day, he's just not that into you." No, we really hit it off. It was really. I think there's a connection. I'm like, sorry, I'm a guy. If he doesn't follow up the next day, or asks to come up and have a drink, he's just not that into you. The fans are just not that into the NFL, and I don't know.
I don't know how they rebuild it.
I don't know if you can rebuild it. Goodell has got to go. Maybe Steve Bannon needs to challenge him. You're listening to the Laura Ingraham Show. The head of the Republican Study Committee is going to join us. A bipartisan flop on Obamacare and a lot more coming up. If you've listened to my show for any period of time, well, you know how much I love the organization Food for the Poor. They do what they say, and their financial integrity is unequaled. And, of course, I've been with them, traveled with them to Guatemala. I've seen their work personally. And right now, the people they serve need your help, and they need it badly. As hurricanes, we know what they've done to the Caribbean. And the news reports, they come and go, they trickle in every now and then now, but a lot of the camera crews have left, but the suffering continues. And this is why I'm asking for your help. This is what Americans do. This is what we've always done at the Laura Ingraham Show. We help people who are in real need. So you can help save lives in the Caribbean. Just $50 provides food for a year and clean water for life for a child. And check this out. You give $2.50 to Food for the Poor, and they do the same for an average-sized family. Help Food for the Poor's amazing team and helping the most in need among us. It's just amazing. No one can do what they can do. This organization is awesome. They've saved lives. They've changed lives forever. And they've changed my life in taking me to Guatemala. I'm not the same person as I was before I went. And see the real. You think we suffer in the United States? What's happening in Puerto Rico today? What's happening in Haiti? What's happening in places like Guatemala? Call them, 844-868-4673, or go to lauraingraham.com. Please, give what you can, $50 or $250. Every gift matters. Go to lauraingraham.com. The president has spoken time and again on the fat cats in the insurance industry, who, by the way, gave their imprimatur to Obamacare and enabled its passage in 2010. And insurance company stocks have done really well, but they've made a huge profits under the Obamacare regime. And now there's a bipartisan group of senators who includes, of course, Susan Collins. That's all you need to know. Who say, "Oh no, we can keep these subsidies going for a few years, but it's not a bailout of the insurance companies." Joining us now, he's the head of the Republican Study Committee. That's a policy committee on Capitol Hill. Republican from North Carolina, Mark Walker. Congressman, make this really clear to my listeners, please, because they hear bipartisan compromise maybe and they think, oh, that's good. It's nice that they're working together. Donald Trump seemed to indicate that he was in favor of this, which boggled my mind. But now it looks like he says he's not in favor of this. Explain this, please.
Well, yeah, I actually, Laura, thanks for allowing me to share some thoughts here. Just talked to the president yesterday afternoon. I got more than the impression. In fact, I point blank asked him about this because we were on one of the morning shows yesterday railing against this, trying to bring attention. This is not a good deal. I mean, the people of that have Obamacare are hurting, but the insurance companies are not. And any time that you have Lamar Alexander and others trying to placate to Susan Collins, first of all, that's a bad deal. I think his quote was, he's got an encouraging, moving in the right direction. That's just more Washington speech. Bipartisan, when I hear that word in Washington, D.C., there's a flag that goes up immediately. Not that we shouldn't work together, and there are issues that we can. But when it comes to continuing the bailout program of these CSRs that at one time were even ruled by the federal courts as illegal, and now we're considering that this is part of the equation, that's not a good place to be.
So where does this stand now? This Alexander, Patty Murray, Lamar Alexander and Patty Murray working together on this, Susan Collins, where does it stand?
Listen, I'm hoping it's dying quick death. Anytime that Chuck Schumer comes out and puts his blessing or talks about the potential of this being a good deal, as a Republican, if that doesn't scare you to death, I'm not sure what does. This is horrible. We're basically just going ahead and signing off. Instead of playing this Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde game, are we going to repeal or replace or what have you, you might as well as a Republican just say, you know what, we're going to keep it, we're going to do what the indivisible and progressive want us to do and just make a tweak here or there and be done with it. Because this is not what we promised the American people.
Well, I think people are beyond fed up. I mean, they're fed up with the snail's pace of legislation that will actually keep this economy humming. They're tired of people within the Republican Party working against the president's agenda, slow-walking the president's agenda, slow-walking confirmations of good candidates for key positions. And we all know that Obamacare isn't working, but the issue that I really have now, Congressman, is with these drug prices. And the fact that we cannot receive the same opportunity to get purchase drugs, as the rest of the OECD countries can purchase drugs at a huge discount compared to what our healthcare consumers pay. That's just ridiculous. That's got to stop. And I think the president knows this. That's a big factor in the rising cost of healthcare. And I'd like to see Congress really tell us the truth on that, the drug prices issue.
Well, here's the thing, Laura. It's easy to pass the buck, and sometimes you see Congress doing this. Big Pharma has a role in it, and we need to call out the players that are in this. But ultimately, Congress has discretion. And instead of trying to point the finger at somebody, this is basically on a party that has both majorities in the House and the Senate, as well as the administration. We've had back-to-back elections where, for the first time in history, 240 or more Republicans have been elected in the House. There are no more excuses to deliver this. Part of this, yes, is on the pharmaceuticals, that we've got to have more transparency. I get all that. But part of this deal with Alexander and Murray and Schumer and all the guys, this had $106 million just to help you like it more, just to help you swallow this pathetic piece of legislation. This is a problem, a systemic problem that goes to the very root. And unless we're willing to be honest about this and engage, for example, the budget reconciliation, the Senate, not to switch too many topics, the Senate is trying to pass something that has no balanced budget in the next 10 years. It has no vehicle to repeal and replace Obamacare, and we were able to at least squeeze out of the House $200 million of long-term mandatory spendings. They're wanting to strip that out, jam us with some kind of pathetic, weak piece of budget reconciliation, and then try to get to the tax reform. I don't understand, and I'm not trying to use your show to rail on the Senate, but I do not understand why the Republicans over there aren't raising more cane against this direction.
And I want to get into that in a moment with some of these challenges to incumbents, Congressman Walker, but I have to get back to this issue of drug prices, because a new piece just came out about how cancer drug prices are rising far faster than the rate of inflation. And it's a new study that came out of Emory University, and this is in the wake of all these drug price gouging cases that we've discussed, and this anti-parasite drug, Daraprim, Mylan's EpiPens, and basically these are anecdotal stories that catch people's attention. But we have massive overcharging happening with prescription drugs on critical medication that our European counterparts can purchase for sometimes 30 to 50% cheaper than U.S. consumers. We should have the same advantages in real competitive drug pricing as our European counterparts, with the big Medicare purchases that are done, of bulk purchases of drugs, and so forth. And that's an issue that every American can understand. They can understand this. And again, harping on this because it is a huge part of the overall rise in prices of healthcare in general. And for the House to lead the way on this would be huge. The House should lead the way on this.
I think we can. We're going to have to put the crosshairs, the FDA, to engage them and get those guys moving. I serve on the House Oversight Committee. I remember a year and a half ago, we brought in Martin Shkreli as far as what he had done to the drug pricing on something that was very important, life-saving HIV drug that he had taken from 2%, raised the cost more than 750%. So, yes, this is something within our jurisdiction, but we have to have the willpower to make sure that we get it done.
So people understand this. U.S. sales prices, they're published by Medicare. Okay, you get the prices of all these different drugs by Medicare. Unlike other countries, our government-run Medicare program is prohibited by federal law from negotiating lower drug prices with manufacturers. Now, why would that be? If you don't tie it to Big Pharma and the big contributions they send to congressmen and senators on Capitol Hill, we don't permit Medicare to negotiate lower drug prices when every other OECD country has that right to negotiate down. We're gonna choose this drug over this drug. You're gonna give us a price benefit on that. I mean, we're supposed to be conservatives. Oh, we should be negotiating the lowest prices for American consumers of drugs, the biggest of which is Medicare recipients. So I want to put that bee in your bonnet, Congressman, and I'm gonna be watching very carefully and closely which people in Congress pick up this baton and run with it, because that'll show real courage against the drug companies.
I think that's a great charge, a great challenge. I think it's something should be in our bandwidth at the free markets. It's good enough for everyday Americans. It should also, those principles should be working in Washington, D.C., and I appreciate you being willing to take a look at this.
And Congressman Walker, there was a piece in the Wall Street Journal by Karl Rove, who, of course, was no fan of President Trump, and his piece is titled Steve Bannon's Motley Crew of Challengers. And he said Bannon justifies his jihad against incumbent Republicans by claiming that they, quote, do not want Donald Trump's populist, economic nationalist agenda to be implemented. But Rove says that's nonsense. Who's closer to being right on certain incumbents? Obviously, you focus on people like Jeff Flake in Arizona, who is diametrically opposed to what Donald Trump wants to do on trade and immigration especially. Is it wrong for some of these incumbent congressmen and senators to be looking over their shoulder now?
Well, you've just tapped into the cardinal rule. Once you get elected to Congress, I've been told that you're not allowed to talk about those things. I guess that's where I get in trouble from time to time. I've been there a little less than 3 years, and as a former pastor, I feel like you need to call it like you see it. I think one of the best filtering process, if you can't keep your promise once you get there on things like tax reform or repealing or replacing Obamacare, I think somebody has every right to be able to call you out on that. That's disingenuous, and in fact, we used to call that lying. But yeah, absolutely. Can I sit here and honestly say that I agree with all of Bannon's tactics when he says that Ted Cruz is the only one that's doing? I know Senator Mike Lee. In fact, I was connecting with him this morning, talking about some concerns. There are people over there that I feel like that are trying to do the right thing. I get a chance to work with them in the House. Many of those that are warriors. And what is a little frustrating is that when you have 50, 60 guys in the House and a handful of senators who are taking the hits every single day, it's very frustrating to be incorporated or conglomerated into one group or the other, because there are people who are there for the right reasons. So I hate to generalize, but I do believe that it is time, it's past time, and I believe that whether it's Bannon or somebody else may get a lot of support by putting the thumb on those who will not follow through on their promises.
Yeah, I mean, just because you're elected once doesn't mean it's written on some tablet somewhere that you should be elected and reelected despite having done very little for the American people or your constituents in your state, other than maybe get some pet projects funded. So I mean, I don't know. Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I don't know all the people that Bannon's thinking of running, and I'm not weighing in on these races other than the ones that I've already weighed in on, like the Flake race. But I do believe if senators in Congress focus more on their pledges and duties to the American people than what Steve Bannon is doing, then they wouldn't have to worry about Bannon. Just focus on what you said you do when you were running for office. You can get that done.
Your constituents are aware of that, of whether you're following through on your promises. I mean, that's one of the big issues that I don't think we talk enough about. But the simple task is, when you say, hey, these are the 5 things that I'm promising them when I go to Congress, and you can't even do a straight-up vote for repeal and replace after you raise money on that, how to me, that's where the corruption begins. That's the foundation of it. And to keep these guys in, and not only keep them in, Laura, we don't like to talk about this a lot of times, but a lot of the money that we pledge as Republicans across the party, a great deal of this money is spent and given to these particular members of both the House and the Senate who aren't fulfilling the promise, who are working even sometimes against the will of the conference. I have no idea why that makes any sense.
And we really appreciate it. Congressman Mark Walker, who has been trying to educate the public on the important need to return power to the people, especially on this issue of Obamacare and fiscal accountability. You can't just keep writing checks from the federal taxpayer and borrowing money from China and other countries and think, oh, no one's going to ever notice. We're never going to have to pay any of this money back. And yet these Republicans seem willing to just jack up spending without any concern for long-term fiscal accountability. It's not working. It didn't work. And it needs to change. Congressman, we appreciate it. We'll take a break on the Laura Ingraham Show. 855-40-LAURA. Generation Y is taking over in various positions in various countries. Just how well will they do? Now a new Australian or New Zealand gal, 31 years old. She's new. She's the new Justin Ardern will be New Zealand's next prime minister after a small political party chose to make deals with Liberals following the nation's election nearly a month ago. She's 37 years old. She's a Liberal, and she's being compared to Justin Trudeau of Canada and Emmanuel Macron of France, because it's Generation Y. And it's funny, Dan Henniger has a piece in the Wall Street Journal. Generation Y takes over, and he's basically saying, why? Is this all just a coincidence that this is happening? Think about it. You got Macron, 39 years old. Ireland's new Prime Minister, Leo Varadkar, is 38. Estonian Prime Minister, Jüri Ratas, is 39. Canada's Justin Trudeau, of course, 45, going on 29 because he looks so young. But why is this happening? It's hard to blame voters for playing the youth card. The world's smartest marketers have decided that everything else is in the hands of the millennials, though fortunately no one yet has proposed letting a 19-year-old run the country. What do these people know? But what's happened with Macron, right?
Macron's popularity has cratered. He's at 30% approval rating, 30% in the latest YouGov poll. Not good.
Well, here's what they don't want. Low growth. Economic low growth. They don't want it. They want to make a change, and we'll see how this all works out.
We have a big story coming up, a federal memorial being torn down.